The pumpkin matchup returns. And you know what that means. It's Ayud 64 versus Kenoli. And Kenoli did win out on the pumpkin bidding war. He is in the top right as our Zerg player, who is 6 pooling. Oh boy. Well, Ayud 64 is down here in the bottom left. Looks like he is the Asparagus Terran. I was very tempted to say Sealid on him, but I always guess it wrong. So now I'm just going to say Asparagus every time. And that'll be the new meta. Guys, thanks for joining me for this episode of Cosmonarchy, and gals too, wherever you may be. Shout out to the gals, if they do exist. I am told that there is such a thing as a woman, and sometimes they go on the internet. I hope you guys are having a good time, because right about now, Kenoli is going to try to make Ayud not have a good time with his 6 pool. Very impressive strategy, of course. It's like about as much IQ as the 14 gate. And yes, Balethal did beat 3-Crow with that strategy once. So just throwing out names. If you guys are new to Cosmonarchy, those names won't really have much significance to you. But I hope you guys enjoy what's about to happen, because this is Cosmonarchy, and you just saw the Drolets harvesting Vespene from the geyser. That's because this is a very different experience than StarCraft 1, you see. It's a very different look. And in fact, Ayud 64 is rocking out with his double stockade, sort of setting up for a wall, and he's got his Harakans coming out here because Firebats don't require an academy. They're not called Firebats. They don't even require Vespene gas. They light targets on fire and rend their armor. They're tanky as hell. They don't have Stimpak. Listen, it's a very different game, okay? If you were expecting the same game, think again. The Harakans are going to run past. It does reveal that the Zethicors are already on the way. This is going to have to force Ayud into a defensive posture, but I feel like, actually, I like his positioning. He's not sure if this is Zeth type, but it wasn't actually, but the Mason definitely helping out there. Bit of a absent micro on the one Maverick, so that one does end up going down. We got more coming out, though, and those units do pop out very, very quickly. The stims are preemptive. They seem to be working out okay. Zets have not been able to get loose in the mineral line, trying to kill some of these Mavericks. There you go, running him down. It will end up happening, but look at that. The great worker pulled, not able to get a single worker outside of the one who is manning the wall. Well, when your 6 pool doesn't end up immediately giving you some damage, you better hope that you got a backup plan. And right now, Kenoli already has his Larvosk up. He is going to be able to get a little bit more larva on the field. Yeah, well, we didn't have much time to talk politics or pleasantries when it came to that opening because of how action-packed it was. But hey, I think that deserves a sip. We're still in the game. I'm actually casting this. It wasn't just a 2-minute blowout. So let's see what ends up happening as Ayud looks like he's making ready to either scout or maybe fish for another base. He's got some Cyprians. I think he's going to go ahead and expand. But I was wrong, you see. Or as I took my fateful sip, Ayud is sitting here repairing his biological units with the Mason. Isn't Cosmonarchy great? Isn't that so amazing? Haven't you never just ever seen anything like that before? Kenoli still harvesting a little bit of Vespene here, not going for the ridge whatsoever, and not going for any expansions in that way either. His second Larvosk is nearly complete. His third one can begin soon if that's what he's after here. Just needs a little bit more Vespene, and nope, maybe not. Maybe he's holding on to it. Now he's going to send out a sort of wave of Quasilisks here. Not really likely to get any damage dealt, but if you can kind of keep the Terran cowing in their base for the time being, you know, before you really see what's going on, you're not really 100% sure what you're vulnerable with. Technically, Ayud could have been going Starpad here, and this would have been a very colossal opening position here. Because if he drops, he kills these Larvos, it's game over. That's it. But he's not doing that. He's going for that expansion. He's going for the Fulcrum. I don't necessarily hate the idea of expanding after the 6 pool, but really I feel like maybe he's giving Kenoli a bit too much credit. How much of a follow-up can he really have, right? I think a timing attack, a counterpunch, can definitely do a lot of damage there. So, you know, just a minor note. Just a minor note. I feel like he probably could have gotten some value there, but he will instead secure the victory the good old-fashioned way. We got the Zorkish Shroud coming up for Kenoli, so he's going to try to get some extra tech going. This structure basically unlocks the Lurker equivalent from the Larva instead of the Hydralisk. It unlocks the and a couple of new units as well, of course, just like the Quasilisk is a new unit, right? We got all kinds of new units. The Cyprian's a new unit. We got the Palladium coming up here as the add-on for the Fulcrum. That will unlock the Phalanx Siege Tank equivalent there, so definitely some good moves here. So if you were looking for tank versus Lurker, well, I guess you might have come to the right place, but we'll see what Kenoli wants to end up making. couple other units he can definitely make use of here. Starpad now coming online. Not only has Aoud triple saturated his gas nodes, but he's also capped this one. So he basically has 2 Vespene geysers in his base. That ridge normally gives you less resources per return, as you can see here. But when you cap it, it turns into something identical in power to the, or in yield anyway, to the geyser itself. So spend a little bit of money, a little bit of downtime. That's your tier 1 gas cap. The other stuff is tier 2. Kenoli going for the Lekizilisks. Interesting choice, but that is exactly what I mentioned earlier, the Lurker equivalent on the way. I think when you know it's bio, it's definitely something that makes sense to do. Plus, you can try to maybe stall out any pushes with those in the same way that if you're retreating with those, it's kind of how, like, in StarCraft 1 TVP, you're kind of sweating bullets. If the Protoss starts to... what would you say? If the Protoss ends up doing something kind of shifty, like constantly delaying your push, forcing you to siege and unsiege, siege and unsiege, it's like the inverse of that. Imagine if the Terran was falling back, constantly sieging and forcing you to, you know, stagger your push out to force them to unsiege, right? You can't really do that as Terran because of the animation of the Phalanx sieging, or indeed the siege tank in StarCraft 1. But you can do that as Zerg because the Lekizilisk Burrow is much, much easier to deal with. Now, this Anseal does have detection. It is a detector, and so it'll get peppered down a little bit here from Kenoli, but it does end up spotting those 2 Lakes. It spots the timing of the hatch. And your tier 2 dropping at the same time as your enemy's natural is finishing. I mean, the Terran player must be feeling pretty good. And we knew Aoud was ahead because of the fact that he was able to repost that 6 pool. We got a lot of Rilla Rokors in here. Kind of an interesting choice because basically when you have Larva downtime, you can choose to spend it on that if you want. But they will time out over... if they end up, you know, going off the Kagra, they will end up timing out. But the Zoryus can kind of escort them. In the aura of a Zoryus, the Rilla Rokor does not lose its timed life. So it's a nifty strat, and I think maybe that's what Kenoli is trying to make something happen here with. Maybe he can try to use them as a last-minute bust. No, he's definitely dispatching the Rilla Rokors to accompany those Zoryus. You can see they pass through small units. Don't pass through each other, though. Third base on the way for Aoud. Slow and steady. Macro machine, I guess. Just trying to keep things going. Definitely has the worker advantage. I haven't really been keeping too much tabs on it, but it feels like maybe he could have a couple additional workers by this point. Nothing too heavy to criticize. Kenoli's actually falling back with most of his quads, leaving one to watch out around 6 o'clock and one to watch out around over here at, I guess you could call that 10. 9 or 10. Yeah, it would be 10. Atlas is finished. So tier 2 unlocked for Aoud pretty fast as well. What is his transition point here? He's actually going to be trying to push out with an attack, maybe? Or at the very least, he's going to try to take some more map control. You can see the stockades lifting up, floating over, and repositioning here. The structure movement speed is a little bit faster in Cosmonarchy compared to in StarCraft 1. So definitely one of those things that gives you a little bit of the vibes, like, okay, yeah, I can relocate my stuff a little bit easier. You can see him immediately starting to make Mavericks again. And a 10 Sender, okay. So you guys know about bunkers. They're called anchors in Cosmonarchy, but the 10 Sender lets you load 10 units. That's not why it's called the 10 Sender. That just happens to be an overlap. And it's a pretty big one. 10 Sender, Facade. Kenoli's got to be going up against a little turtle. Little turtle Aoud. You know? Turtles are associated with the color green. And he's a green color. He's like, oh, I guess I'm a turtle. I don't know. That's the extent of my analysis. The Oviloth's going to scoop up one of the Lakes to see if he can ferry it into the main base and draw a little bit of a distraction. And another 10 Sender Facade coming up here. So the Facade can project a cloaking field around units here. And it's not, the first one's not going to actually finish in time. This one will. Is he going to go ahead and use it? It's an active ability required. The Anseal screams into view just in time to reveal some of those Lakes as Kenoli ends up absolutely getting shellacked and eviscerated. But there's one in the mineral line here for Aoud, and he hasn't looked back at his main base yet. Oh boy. He needs to be watching for those blinking red dots. Oh man, this one Lake is getting a lot of value. He still hasn't looked back. Only now is he realizing it. That's 8 kills, 9 kills, and rising. He'll scoop it up and say, oh yeah, okay, cool. That worked out. So obviously, just like in StarCraft 1, if you are currently under attack, you know, the transmission is playing, your units are under attack, you're going to get a lack of that second line, you know, another line at the same time. There's no overlap on those audio files. But obviously, the minimap will still be blinking. You'll get the ping. You'll still be flashing, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's one of those things that definitely is significant. And, you know, Aoud missing it up a little bit there. He's still pretty good worker count-wise. He's got his third base up and running. So, honestly, went okay for him despite losing 9 workers. Kenoli behind that did float a decent amount of money. He's got the Iral Iris coming. He's going to try to do another round of production. I think he needs to add like 3 or 4 hatches for production and expand at least twice. That would make me comfy in this position as Zerg. All right, I got this float. I've been taking the fight to my enemy. I can see he's going for a hardcore camp style with his. He's even got his Cestus out for that very important armor aura. Guys, you can fit 5 Cyprians in a 10 center. That is unbelievable amounts of Zerg death right there. Cyprians fire a line trace shot. That if they penetrate the target, which is to do with armor and stuff, that's a pretty big deal as well, because every target besides the first will take half damage. First target obviously taking full. Now here comes the push in from the other side. Still no activation of the facade, so we don't get to see its usage just yet. I think Aoud's like realizing, wait a second, I keep forgetting to use this. I gotta push the button. What's happening? All right, the Lakis is gonna go ahead and start slowly sieging that down. We saw that, or heard rather, the shuffle of the Phalanxes as they're gonna go ahead and get in a position to counter back. Oh, okay. It's a very fast tier 3. That's the move here. That Lakis is gonna need to go ahead and get out of dodge. There you go. Kenoli being cheeky. Still no saturation on that very, very important third base here for Kenoli. So he's still on 2 bases right now versus a 3-base Terran who's going to tier 3 and is trying his best to be impenetrable. I know Aoud was practicing in different styles, right? He probably sees himself as a superior mechanical player to Kenoli. He's like, okay, well, I can probably just go ahead and brute force this if I wanted to, but why not try a different style? And so now he's going to go ahead and drop another Cestus. Cestuses provide detection. So there's like all of these different pieces of the defensive Exodia that are being assembled slowly, but certainly. A lot of Lyrilisks being made from Kenoli. He aims to try to run down the army, which doesn't suck as an idea. Only problem being, the Lyrilusk only has 1 armor. He needs some kind of front line to soak up the Cyprian action. We can see here the Cyprian has 2 armor pen. If the armor pen is higher than the armor of the target, it will penetrate and thus dealing more damage to subsequent targets it hits. So it, generally speaking, is a pretty big spike in power. All right, well, we have the Hatcherosks coming online slowly but surely. 12 o'clock, a round of Droleths. Kenoli trying to take a little bit of a macro attention. But tier 3 is about to finish, and Aoud is already sending some Masons into position to try to... Oh, he's actually just adding more static defenses, it looks like. Sure, why not? Eventually there will be a diadem there, mark my words. We've actually seen a lot of diadems lately in the casts, haven't we? I feel like it's like every other game we see an ion cannon. Well, maybe it'll happen in this game as well. Immediately throws down the Apothecaries, going for that tier 3 bio, as well as an Iron Foundry. Okay, so some tier 3 mech. No diadems just yet. Aoud still has a lot of cash. He's capped everything that he can. At tier 3, you get access to an even more powerful... Oh, there's the diadem, of course. So we will see it. You get access to an even more powerful version of the reservoir at tier 3 called the Wellbore. It requires more resources and time to get set up, and you have to destruct the reservoir to get access to it, which you can do automatically. The facade in the mineral line, okay, so the facade channels proximity cloak, which means if you're close enough to the mineral line, you can just reveal the units that are being cloaked by the facade. So I just find that really funny as a concept. You know what I mean? Sorry for that ear-screeching pierce. I'm not, or ear-piercing screech. There you go. I was not aware of that was going to happen. I would have clicked more carefully. But yes, it looks like these units are going to go ahead and lift off those structures, rather, so that the rest of the army might be able to navigate around this position. Kenoli playing a bit of a sleepy game as well. You know, Aoud and Kenoli both kind of minding to their own sides of the map. You can see some gas caps have gone down for Kenoli, or are going down as we speak, especially at this third base, the fourth base as well. Main base, okay, so the only one that's actually finished is the natural. But no tier 3 in sight for him yet. That seems to be where he wants to go. He's making Almaxilisks, which are pretty good at like trying to penetrate high armor targets. They're almost like a Zerg. They're not really like this at all thematically or in terms of visuals, but they serve a role that's not that dissimilar to the Drakadin from the Protoss, the Dragoon equivalent for the Protoss. And I say that because basically the Almaxilisks have a lot of upfront damage. It's pretty powerful. They move at a middling rate for units of their tier. They're okay durability-wise. Like, there's a lot about them that just kind of reminds me of that. So Kenoli is going to go up against a 4-base Terran here, having already secured himself a 4th base in the process of taking his 5th. So we're slowly seeing the Zerg slowly outstrip his opponent. We still have the Diadem operational here. It has not fired a warning shot yet. Tier 3 is... there's no way, no universe where Kenoli knows that there's Tier 3 here. No semblance of it. Anytime you see a neutral town center, you should remind yourself that in Cosmonarchy, you can return to allied town centers, and neutral counts as an ally for most, if not all, environments or like things, mechanics, etc. You know, so you're thinking about like resources. Yep, that's neutral counts for that. If you see a neutral garrison like the Tensender, then you can load your own units into it to temporarily claim it, sort of like a Command and Conquer style garrisonable structure in the middle of the map. If you think about like Command and Conquer 3 or probably even 2, I can't remember. It's been so long since I played those. So the Almacs are out, but there is definitely a dearth of Vespene here for Kenoli. Really dearth of resources in general, but he's using his advanced workers here, the Gosvaleths, to harvest. They fly, they move a little fast, so you know they can get a lot of value out of stuff like this. Get a little bit more Vespene in the tank. You can sort of save up money while spending on enough resources. I still don't think there was anything about the army so far that has allowed Kenoli to know he's up against tier 3. That's clearly where he wants to go. Our players have decided to handshake. This is probably one of the slowest... You know, you're basically tuning into a podcast right now, guys. This is a Cosmonarchy podcast. It's got music. It's got Cosmonarchy sounds. It's a very well-edited podcast, but that's basically where we are at. Subscribe for more podcast content, by the way, because actually I don't know if I'm going to be doing more podcast content like this. I will ask people who submit replays if they're podcasts or not. But yeah, you know, we could just talk. You know, we're just here. We're just chilling. We see all the cool tier 3 units. There is a great conflagration coming. But this is one of those cases where you're going to have to start practicing that delayed gratification stuff, guys. If you don't work out already, or if you do, but you don't work out that much or whatever, this is, you're exercising willpower, right? This is like, all right, I didn't work out, but I did watch a Cosmonarchy podcast today. So it's kind of the same thing, right? Not really. I do recommend working out. But I will point out that right now, Kenoli and Ayud are building up towards their tier 3 confrontation. And I say that because Kenoli just now got enough resources to get that almighty tier 3. It'll, of course, be like a minute and a half before it finishes once it starts, but hey, that's his problem, not mine. He's planning. He's thinking. He's figuring it out. He's taking more bases. And, you know, to his credit, he's actually outstripping Ayud in terms of the economy. Similar worker count, but more bases for sure. First Diadem shot has been fired. I don't know. Okay, Kenoli definitely saw it. He saw the fields on the second one. The Cestus has been lifted. It does not provide detection while lifted off. You have to land it to provide detection. Not sure that many Terran players know about that. Silver Tongues and Penumbras are resounding as they charge forth. I don't really think Kenoli's army is going to do too much over here. Penumbra do deal AoE damage, and Silver Tongues are really, really good sniper units. Plus, he's got dilettantes to just get pretty much anybody. So, what's the move here? You can see the whole map is a mess, a morass, a throng of death as Kenoli charges forth. Now, the Penumbra have been distracted, dealing with Lyrilisks down there on the bottom. They are not splashing down the Almacs, who are absolutely reaming the Bio forces. Now, the Silver Tongues still work out. They still pack a punch, but slowly, maybe not so slowly, the Penumbra are starting to fall. The splash damage was not directed in the right location. I love the last-ditch moment. Get 1 or 2 more shots out of that Penumbra, courtesy of those Ant Seals. But, yeah, it was a pretty, overall, I would say that was a trade that slightly favored our Zerg player. The problem is, does he have the tech necessary to follow it up? And I'm not so sure the answer to that question is yes. We got a lot of Diadem shells here. Sure, you got your tanky melee units. You got even a couple of brood spawn shots, even a little bit of friendly fire from some of those diadem shots, but the ion cannons will not be trifled with. Now, the surviving Almaxilisks are going to try to wrap around maybe, but I don't think they're going to get too much value done. There's only 6 of them, and there's plenty of watchdogs to spare. That being said, maybe he's found a little bit of an angle. There you go. He can get a little bit of value there. That's going to be a little bit annoying for Ayud. I don't think he has much of an air force. With a little bit better targeting on the Penumbras, I do think that Ayud would have actually had that fight pretty handily. At the same time, he did get surrounded, almost fully surrounded, mind you. Kenoli definitely had a really, really solid concave that just collapsed utterly. And we do have a... This ministry is so dangerous. I feel like at this point, you know, if Kenoli had any infestation unit, he could definitely grab that, but not to be the case right now. So what did we actually see there? Kenoli lost his 4 Gosvoleths that were mining over here. He did get this base quashed in the middle of it being taken. He obviously lost a big army. Right now, he's only got Zoryus and Lyrilisks. He's making the Ultrav Cavern, so that's going to allow him to turn these Zoryus into the Ultralisk equivalent. We call it the Ultra Core, because Zerg names are a mouthful for most. But I do think that right now, the Zoryus into Ultra Core, I mean, it is going to be a pretty big upgrade. They do have lifesteal. They consume corpses to move and attack faster, which kind of increases their lifesteal in a way. It increases how much health they will generally steal in a battle. So in a frenzied fight, they can definitely get a ton of value. The Lyrilisks are going to come in here, and it really does feel like this was a gifted ministry for Kenoli, but he's not going to go ahead and make good on it. His tier 3 does finish. In the backdrop, Ayud is going to start facing depletion in a lot of his bases. His 3rd, natural, and main all depleted, which means he's getting way less resources than he would otherwise. Gosvoleth's coming on in, seeing what's going on. Oh, I see. They're just returning to the ministry. I gotcha. The neutral one, not the Ayud one. You can't return to your allies or your enemy's ministry. That's not allowed. Ultra Cores could end up being pretty significant, and now the tier 3 is actually on the way here with the tier 3 tech, I should say, being actuated. That's a pretty big move. You can tell Ayud is realizing he needs to take another base. I'm wondering why he wants to expand towards his opponent, though. I mean, this base has been free the whole time. These 2 bases in the bottom right are free. What's going on? Why doesn't he want to go 6 o'clock? That's not his 5th base. He's going to expand in his opponent's corpse, and he will not hear anything else. So the Ultra Cores are done. There's a good number of them. Kenoli has so much money. He just finished up his Axtoth Axis, and his Gafthalasks are done as well. So these structures, the Hive equivalent, make double the units. So normally you get 2 Excitralisks anyway. You get a pair of them when they pop out. You're actually going to get 4. And the Excitralisk is a unique unit for the Zerg that when it takes fatal damage, it becomes, it regresses into a weaponless version of itself instead of dying. And that version of itself with no weapon will eventually regenerate. I think it's like 8 seconds after death, it gets its weapon back. So obviously a pretty good move there for Excitralisks to be invoked into the army. And they're pretty solid, you know, DPS. Obviously it's 3 armor pen, it's 2 attacks. So yeah, okay, they have a pretty good DPS, and they're a little bit hard to break targets like the Penumbra that have 5 armor. They're going to be dealing 10 damage instead of, 20 damage instead of 24, as an example. But still, 20 damage per shot, that's not too terrible, especially for how free the unit is. Now, this sieging is definitely going to be painful for Kenoli to endure. But endure it he shall, because he's charging along the whole rest of the map. He suspects, and he doesn't really have a strong reason to suspect this just yet. But he's like, surely I must have missed an expansion or something. There's no way he took my base as his 5th and is currently floating into my base with his 6th. But that's exactly what's happening. And he is now going to see if he can break through with the Ultra Cores, with the Excitralisks. You can see the regression just there. Some of those units not really going to be able to do too much as they are collapsing, but hey, if you stand inside this field, you will attack faster. You'll take damage, but you'll attack faster. It's a byproduct of the ion field. And you can see Kenoli using that a little bit to his benefit. No facade movements whatsoever. The Terran army now trying to return. This is a really, really big stack, a death stack of Zerg. I mean, when you see this as your screenshot, like, come on, man, how are you supposed to fight that? All the diadems in the world might not make it happen. Now that Anti-Chthon has arrived, that's going to be a really, really big feather in Ayud's cap if he can keep that alive. A quiver in his bow. A couple more diadem shots definitely helps softening up this army. More units streaming on in. They're not even on an attack move and they're finding value. Claymore trying its best to slow everything down. Oh boy. I mean, oh, the shellacking from the diadems. I still don't think it's quite enough though. I think Aoud, his army doesn't look so hot right now. What does he have coming? 15 more Tothra-cores. That's going to be 30 if Kenoli's making them out of the Gathalosk. So even more than it seems. And now just running right on top of the Penumbra, using some of their splash damage against them. You can see it does take a little bit more effort to bring him down for the Ixitrilsks than some of the other units they were facing. But the Ultra Cores are just sustaining through most of this shot. The Diadem has fallen. So many Diadems, in fact, fell. These Penumbras still kicking, still rocking and rolling. The reinforcements are not in number that we would want to see here. It feels like Aoud, he might have toyed with his food a little bit too much, and now Kenoli, he's like, well, you let me do my thing, I let you do your thing, but I'm Zerg, so I win. And I just can't imagine how Aoud is going to turn this one around. The Anticathon is going to be brought down almost assuredly, and GG is called almost 30 minutes in. Kenoli claims victory. What a bizarre, silly match. And, you know, Kenoli confirmed a dub poster. What can I say? I hope you guys enjoyed that very strange display of bizarre Tier 3 antics. I hope you enjoyed the podcast that led up to it. I'll catch you guys pretty soon for some more Cosmonarchy. We have videos every day on this channel. Tomorrow, I finally cast the last of the tournament groups. It's going to be Sausage Lord, Haunt, and Kasuga duking it out. Join me then. GG.